You know, these days the packaging of food is extremely important, and I'm trying to think of a way in which we can package eggs more attractively and more practically. See, wouldn't it be great if we could put eggs in little square boxes, because we could then sit them on shelves in the shop? Well, I bought thousands of these little square boxes. Trouble is, they're just a little bit too small to fit eggs in. Also, it'd be interesting to put eggs in clear jars. Once again, I've got hundreds of these jars, but they're all a little bit too small for my eggs. Can you think of a way that I could change the egg so that I can fit it in a square box or a small clear jar? You might say, well, break it. No, I mean without actually breaking the egg. Trouble is, the egg has a very hard shell. Listen to this. You can hear it, and that shell is actually made of something called calcium carbonate, which is the same material that you find in many different kinds of stones. This piece of marble, listen to that. Same material, calcium carbonate. The shells you find at the beach are made of that same stuff, and if we take one of these shells and drop it in vinegar, maybe this will give you a clue as to what we can do to change the eggshell. There's a beach shell going into a glass of slightly warm vinegar. I've just had it sitting in a bowl of warm water. Can you see what's happening? Bubbles are coming off. There's a chemical reaction taking place. I'll put half an eggshell in there as well. And before long, you'll see that bubbles come off that as well. Look at that. There's quite a vigorous chemical reaction taking place in which a gas is being produced called carbon dioxide. Thousands of bubbles of that. That's the same gas that makes the drinks that you like to drink at school and home to quench your thirst bubble and fizz. Carbon dioxide. But also the interesting thing here is that that shell, the beach shell and the egg shell, are actually slowly but surely dissolving in the vinegar, because vinegar is an acid. Now that gives us a clue as to what we could do to a solid, whole, unbroken egg. Here it is, same one that we saw before. Let's drop that in a glass of warm vinegar. It's only very slightly warm, and I'm going to leave that there overnight. If you do this at home, put it on the kitchen sink and just leave it there. Come back and watch it every now and then, and you'll see it bubbling away as the hard part of the shell, the calcium carbonate, slowly dissolves. You might say, wait a minute, the egg will break and all the inside will run out. No, it won't, because when you come back next morning, this is what you'll find. An egg that looks something like this. All sorts of grotty stuff all over it, but you'll find that you can get rid of that if you lower it into some warm, clean water and just rub it gently with your fingers, as I'm doing now. That'll come off, that material. That's where the material is dissolved, and there are little bits of the coloured material that make up a brown egg if it happens to be a dark coloured egg. But the egg itself is intact. It has not broken. And by rubbing it for a few minutes like that, you'll clean it up and you'll have an egg which feels very different. In fact, it feels almost as if it's made of rubber. Watch this egg when I squeeze it between my fingers. You can see that it's actually bending. It's a raw egg, but it's almost a rubberized egg. Look, I have another quite large one here. Watch what happens to this. If I bring it over to the solid part of the bench and let it go. You ready for this? I'll hold it just a few millimeters, or maybe a couple of centimeters above the bench. Ready, set, go. It's actually a bouncing egg, even higher. Look at that, a rubberized bouncing egg. And it will actually change shape without breaking. How are we going to fit it in the jar? Well, let's try this. You might say, oh, I've seen tricks before where you get an egg into a bottle with a piece of paper that's burning and changes air pressure. Don't need any of that. Just an empty jar and your rubberized egg. Squeeze it and push it, and with a bit of luck, you'll be able to get it in there. There we are. It'll bounce around in the bottom. Still quite whole. What about the square egg? Well, let's take another one and see if we can now get that into the cardboard box. We'll sit it on top. There we are. It still looks too big for the box, doesn't it? But if we just tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, it turns that round egg into, look at that, a square egg which fits neatly into the box. I can now close the flap and we can put it on the shop shelf. Well, I don't know whether shops are really going to go for my rubberized eggs, but I tell you what, I know you're going to try making one at the kitchen sink. But if Mum says, hey, wait a minute, you're not wasting good eggs, tell her you won't be wasting them, because look at this. After you've finished your experiments, you can actually break them open with your fingernails, believe it or not. There we are. And the egg is still whole. There's the yolk, there's the white. and you can fry it or poach it or whatever you like. It might have a slight vinegary flavour, but that may even improve the taste.